Hello, everybody. My name is Max, and welcome to our B2 First listening course. In this course, you are going to learn everything about the listening section. You're going to learn how to answer the questions. What are the traps? There are many traps in this part. You have to learn how to answer them and how to just not fall into these traps. And there are many distractions in this part of the test. You need to learn them, and I'm going to teach you all of them in this course. You're going to learn how to answer the questions, how to just find the answers, because it's really important to find the answers as well, not just answering the questions. You need to find them in the audio file that you're hearing. And also, you're going to have tons of exercise in this part. You're going to learn everything about the listening section after practicing all these exercises, after you learn how to answer them. And of course, you get to practice a little bit in this course. But I've provided everything necessary for you in this course so that you can feel completely comfortable after finishing this course. So without any hesitation, let's begin. All right, so in this video, we're going to learn about all different parts of the test. We're going to see what we expect in this test and basically how many questions we need to answer and how we should practice, what we should do in order to pass the listening test successfully. So first of all, as you all know, it's going to be 4 parts, and you're going to answer them in around 40-ish minutes. And you'll have to do different things in this part. There are different types of questions that we expect to have in this part. And you've got to demonstrate a wide range of listening skills needed for real life purposes. For example, understanding the gist of an extract. Gist means the general ideas. Now, sometimes it's not the general ideas, it's the specific information you have to listen for. You need to understand the speaker's opinion, attitude, or feeling. So these are the things that you have to focus in this part, and definitely they will test you on these different things so that you can understand sometimes the general idea, sometimes the specific, sometimes feeling, opinion, and things like this in this part. Now, when do we normally do the listening? So listening is normally happening after 2 other tests. So basically, first you have your reading section. After reading and use of English, you have writing, and after writing, you have listening. So that's going to be a little bit difficult for you to do this part because you'll be exhausted. Now, the reason why you will be exhausted is that reading section is going to take you around 1 hour and something. Writing is going to take you again 1 hour and something. So it's going to be around 3 hours just doing those parts. And then you have to do this part for 40 minutes. So it's going to be 3 hours or something doing all these 3 parts. And speaking probably is going to be after this, or it's going to be in another day based on the institute that you're taking this test. Sometimes it's in the same day, sometimes it's not. I've got many students that they had it in the same day after their listening test, like 40 minutes after that, or they had it like, let's say, in another day. Again, it's based on your the place that you're taking the test. So they will tell you definitely before the test when you have to take the speaking test. Now, one good thing about the listening section is that they know that you'll be exhausted. So for that reason, all the audio files from part 1 to part 4, you will listen to them twice. So that's a really good thing. It means you're not going to just listen to them one time. So if you couldn't get the answer or couldn't find the answer the first time, you've got a second chance. You can listen one more time and definitely you can find the answer. But again, don't feel really satisfied. You said, oh, I've got 2 times. I can listen to it for 2 different times. No, it's not like that, because sometimes you might get distracted. So you have to be very, very focused in this part. My suggestion is always try to listen the first time and answer the first time, and then listen for the second time to confirm your answer, not just finding the answer the second time. Because if you find the answer the second time, you've got no chance to listen again to check whether your answer was 100% correct or not. So always the first time, listen and try to think that way, that there is no second time that I'm going to listen to this audio file. So I have to find the answer the first time. And then the second time is for you to find out whether you were right or not. And that's a very good way to find the answers. But again, there are many ways to find the answer, many ways to find those distractions in this part. Don't worry about it. I'm going to teach you all of it one by one, and you're going to learn everything. So let's take a look at different parts of the test. As I mentioned, there's going to be 4 different parts in this test, and each part has its own, let's say, type of questions, number of questions, and you've got a bunch of scores for, let's say, answering the correct question. Now, for the first part of the test, we're going to have something called multiple choice. Multiple choice format is something like, for example, you've got a question and you've got a couple of options, like let's say 3 options, and you have to choose which option answers the question. Now, in this part of the test, which is part 1, you're going to have 8 questions, and if you answer each question correctly, you're going to get 1 score, which means 8 questions, 8 scores totally you can get in this part. Now, the focus of this part is on identifying, let's say, speaker's feeling, attitude, let's say different topics, opinion, purposes. Maybe sometimes the speakers are having some kind of a conversation. You have to check whether they agree, disagree. You have to look at the, let's say, general information, details in this part. And each question that you're going to listen to is going to be around, let's say, 30 seconds. And you have to listen to these 30-second audio file, and you have to find the answer. And each question has 3 options, and you have to find out. There are many traps in this part, which you have to take, let's say, 100% care, because if you don't, probably you're going to fall into the trap. We're going to talk about it in part 1, a specific video that we have, or we'll talk about it, and we will take a look at a real test. And in the real test, we'll check how you should find the answer and how you should answer it correctly. Now, in part 2, what you have to do is, again, you have another part with 10 questions this time. And this part is related to sentence completion. Now, sentence completion refers to a sentence which there is something missing in that sentence. And you have to listen and complete that sentence with the things you, for example, heard. And again, there are 10 different gaps which you have to fill, and each gap is going to get you 1 score if you answer them correctly. And basically, you're going to get 10 scores at the end if you answer all of them correctly. Now, here they focus on detail, identifying the specific information, and the stated opinion. So here is not about general things. It's about always detail and specific information here. So you have to be very careful in this part, because if you're listening to something general, you're not going to get the answer. You cannot just listen for general information like part 1. You have to listen for specific information they say. They said something really specific about a situation, and that is the answer. Now, unlike part 1, in part 2, you're going to have 1 audio file. As we mentioned in part 1, you're going to have 8 different audio files. Each audio file is for 1 question. But in part 2, you're going to have only 1 audio file. You're going to listen to 1, and you have to answer all 10 questions at the same time. This audio file is going to be around 3 to 4 minutes. And while you're listening to it, you have to answer all the questions. How to answer these questions, what are the traps, how to find the answers. We will explain that in a specific video which we have in the course, and you will learn it. Here is an introduction. We're just learning what to expect in the exam. Now, in the next part of the exam, which is part 3, you're going to have another type of question, which we call it multiple matching. Now, what does it mean, multiple matching? This part is going to consist of 5 different speakers and 8 different sentences. Your job is to find what each speaker saying. For example, each speaker is talking about a same kind of topic. The topic, for example, is about holiday, it's about something. And your job is to find that, okay, this speaker 1 talked about, for example, letter H, letter B, letter C. And you can choose only 1. You have to match them. A speaker A matches, for example, or speaker 1 matches sentence B. So you have to match them, and you have to do that. So there are 5 speakers, and each speaker, again, is going to talk about a related topic for about 30 seconds. and your job is to connect them with 5 of those 8 sentences. So it means there's going to be always 3 extra sentences that which you're not going to use, and they're just there to distract you. And again, this part is trying to focus on, again, sometimes feelings, sometimes general information, sometimes details. Like, let's say you have sometimes general type of questions, means you have to listen to the whole audio file to understand the general idea, and then based on that you can choose one of the sentences. Sometimes no, you have to focus on their attitude, for example, their opinion, and based on that you can choose the answer. Again, each question is going to get you 1 score, totally 5 speakers, so it means 5 total score you can get in this part. Now in part 4 is somehow look like part 1. Again, you have multiple choice format. Again, you have 1 question and you've got multiple choice options which you have to choose from them, and you have to find which one is the correct answer to the question. So unless part A, let's say part 1, sorry, you've got 7 questions in this part, so you don't have 8 questions. And here, one thing that is different from part 1 is that part 1, there were like, say, 8 different audio files, but in part 4, you're going to have 1 audio file for 7 questions. So one more time, in part 4, you're going to have 1 audio file for all the 7 questions, which is pretty long. It's around 3 to 4 minutes, again, just like part 2. And usually it's an interview between 2 speakers. For example, a person just bought a new, I don't know, coffee shop, and a person is just interviewing that person, asking him a couple of questions, and the other person is answering those questions, and based on those answers that the person is giving to the interviewer, you have to find the answers. Again, there's going to be many traps in this part which you have to be very careful, which we will talk about all the traps in this part. Always students will make so many mistakes in this part because they don't know what to do. They get, like, let's say after like question 3, they don't know where they are. Is it question 3 right now? Is it question 4? Where is it? Because the audio file is not going to stop. It's going to be just keep going, and you might get lost in one of these. So there are many techniques in this part which you have to learn, and learning those techniques will help you to just focus on those questions that is necessary and they're talking at that specific time, and you can find the answers easily. Now this part is also focuses on a little bit more detailed things. It's not always general ideas, it's more details. Probably they're going to talk about opinion, attitude, feeling. Sometimes, as I mentioned, general idea as well is important to understand, but mainly it's about, let's say, specific information that they're talking. So you have to find that a specific, let's say, topic or whatever they're saying to find the answer. So in this part, you have, again, 7 questions, and each question is going to get you 1 mark. So if you answer all of them correctly, you can get up to 7 total marks. So what is the, let's say, total? So totally, you can get, if you answer all the questions correctly, we have 30 questions. And as we mentioned, all the questions worth 1 score, and you're going to get 30 scores or 30 marks at the end of the test. Now, the question is, how many marks do I need to pass this test? Do I need to answer all these questions correctly? Well, the answer is no, you don't need to answer all of them correctly. So write down, if you answer 18 questions correctly, you pass B2. So 18 questions correctly, which means pass B2. Now, if you answer from 18 to 27, this part from 18 to 27, it means B2. And if you get 27 scores, this is C1. So if you get 26, still you're B2, but if you answer 27 correctly, you are going to get C1, and 27, 28, 29, and 30 is going to be also C1. Now, our goal in this course is to learn how to answer the questions so that you can get something around 27 We're not going to focus on 18, and you as well. Don't focus on 18. So, oh, 18 is good. If I answer part 1 and part 2 correctly, I don't need to even answer part 3 and part 4. No, basically that is true. If you answer all part 1 and part 2 completely correct, you don't need to even answer part 3 and part 4, and you pass the test. But that's not it. If you answer one of them wrong, the whole calculation is wrong. So you should not do that, and nobody does it. So you have to answer all part correctly, and you can get a better score at the end. So why don't you do that and try not to focus on 27 rather than focusing on 18? And that's what we're going to do. Our focus is trying to get you the best score possible in this, let's say, listening test. All right, now let's take a look at a sample test, how the exam look like in each part. Let's take a look at different parts of the test. So this is how part 1 is going to look like. As we mentioned, there's going to be 8 questions, and you have to answer each question from a multiple choice format. You have to choose one of the answers. And as you can see, you have options for each one, which you have to choose A, B, C. And just like that, you can find the answers. Remember, in this part, you're going to listen to 8 different audio files. Each audio file is related to, let's say, one question. So they're completely separated audio files, and based on each audio file, you have to answer. And we can listen to them twice, and that's a very good advantage that you have. This is how part 2 is going to look like. Again, this is, as I mentioned, sentence completion. It means you've got 10 questions, and your job is to complete each question or complete each sentence by the words that you hear in this part. In part 3, as I mentioned, you're going to have 5 speakers and 8 sentences, and they're talking about kind of related topic. And your job is to connect each speaker with one of these sentences. Remember, you cannot connect it to 2. There's going to be only 1. And after you answer, there's going to be 3 extra options which you don't need to use. And it's just there to distract you. And this is part 4, which looks like part 1. And you're going to answer these questions correctly by choosing one of the options again. But remember, it's not just like part 1. It looks like part 1, but it's not like part 1 because there's going to be only one audio file here. So it's not going to be one audio file. It's going to be only one. And based on that one audio file, you have to answer all the questions together. Again, it's a multiple choice format, so you have to choose one of these correct answers. You have to choose one of these correct answers. And there's not going to be 2. Always there's going to be 1. All right, now what are my challenges in this part, and how can I just, let's say, prepare myself for the test? So let's a little bit talk about the things that we expect to have in this test, and you should try to practice them on your own and try to improve yourself. So the first thing that you need to practice is accents. You have to try to improve your knowledge about accents. You have to try to let's say, make yourself comfortable with different accents in this test, because definitely you're going to listen to tons of different accents in this part. Is not going to be always American or British. Maybe you listen to a Scottish accent, maybe from New Zealand or something. So this is one thing. We're going to talk about them in details. And time management is also important in this part. You might say, what? Time management? How can I manage my time? I'm going to talk about this. Prediction also is really important. Distractions or distractors, and challenging your first answer. So let's start with the accents to see what the accents are. So basically, accents, as I mentioned, is going to be from different parts of the world. So you cannot just practice one type of accent. You have to practice different. And in that case, it's not going to be a piece of cake. So you have to try to avoid any type of problems, understanding or any comprehension problems by listening to different kinds of accents. You should avoid that. How can I do that? Basically, practice is the only way, and you should try to get some knowledge from different sources outside of this course, and inside of this course also I put everything necessary to pass this test. Basically, you don't need anything extra, but for those that they want to also improve their let's say understandings better, there are many other sources that you can practice. One of it is news. You can listen to different kinds of news, BBC, I don't know, CNN, which I don't recommend, but it's one of the sources out there. Movies, 100% the best source ever. TV shows, podcasts are awesome. There are many podcasts out there, which I'm going to upload also a podcast in the future in this course. Audiobooks also is going to be really helpful to improve your knowledge about accents and try to avoid having any kind of problems with different accents. So try to keep it in your program, try to keep it in your daily schedules, that if you have like listening to podcasts, try to put it always. Watching TV series would definitely help you with the English subtitle, not your own language subtitle. It should be with English subtitle and you have to listen to it. And that's going to be really helpful in order to improve your understanding of different types of accents. Now, we also talked about time management. Now, you might tell yourself, what? How can I like manage my time when it's an, let's say, audio file? I have to listen and answer. I don't have any time to manage. Well, basically, it's not true. What you have in the test is that the test is going to be always, each part of it is going to be, let's say, a long introduction. Each part is going to have its own introduction, instructions. It's going to tell you how to do this part, what to do in this part, and that's the time you have to use. How can I use that time? Basically, you have to, in each part, there are many strategies you have to do, which we'll talk about them in part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4, how to do each part. But one of the things that I can say generally is that you have to use that time of instruction to read, underline, or whatever thing you need to do, which we will talk about it in each part. You have to do that during that time. Always you have around 1 minute or 2 minutes of doing that, because the instruction is long. It's going to talk about, okay, in this part of the test, you're going to receive different questions. For question 1 to 8, do this. Oh, it's long. So you have a lot of time to identify, highlight the keywords in each questions and try to, let's say, read as much as possible. And we will talk about it in each part, so don't worry about it, how to manage your time. But this is what time management means. This is very, very, very important. Prediction. Most of the students, they don't do that. And that's why they're not going to get a good score. And I highly, highly recommend predictions for different parts, such as part 2. And prediction will give you the idea of what to expect in the audio file. For example, you're going to listen to an audio file, and the question is asking, for example, Hannah's feeling. So when the question is about Hannah's feeling and about a bad vacation that she had, you kind of get the idea of, okay, so probably because she had a bad vacation, so she was not really happy. So I predict that the answer should be something negative. And one of the answers is always positive. For example, cheerful. So you can say that when you have a bad vacation, you're not going to feel satisfied or happy. Definitely is going to be something negative. So this is one of the ways that you can find the answer, and you know what to expect when you're listening to the audio file. So when you're listening, you know, okay, I have to focus for this type of information. I have to focus for this type of information. And in that way, you can find the answer really easily. At each part, I will teach you how exactly you should predict. We'll take a look at a lot of samples together, and you can answer them really easily. The next part is distractors. Now, distractors are also something that is going to be always in the exam. Now, one of the distractions that I'm going to teach you, which is really, really important, is the exact word matches. For example, in part 1, one of the questions is telling you, for example, how does she feel about, or how did she feel about that situation, okay? And one of the answer is she was happy, okay? and you heard exactly she was happy in the audio file, and that is not the answer. So this is one of the things I can tell you, that we will take a look at it. Why is not the answer in many parts, like part 1. And you have to check out the audio file and you will understand that this is a very important lesson, which most students, they don't know that. They think that, okay, if the answer is happy, I have to listen for a word happy in the audio file, and it's completely the opposite. If you heard the same word, that's not the answer. Of course, in some parts, like part 2 is not true. Part 2, the answer is exactly what you heard. Now, another distractor here is your surrounding, the place that you're taking the test. Remember, if you're taking the paper-based exam, there's going to be a speaker in your room, and you're going to listen to that speaker, and you have to answer the questions with all the other students sitting next to you. So if a student is sick, is sneezing, coughing, or students playing with his I don't know, pencil or pen or whatever, playing with the desk or chair or table or whatever, it's going to distract you. So your job is to just ignore everything around you. Put your head down, look at your task, look at the questions, and just answer the questions, and do not look around. Looking around means distraction. And even 1 second of distraction might, let's say, cost you a point, because the answer was there and the answer was not there, and you thought the answer was there or was not there. So you might miss the complete answer because of like 5 seconds of looking at another boy or girl next to you. So be very careful of that. Try to ignore everything. Put your head down and look at the task and answer the questions, and ignore everything around you. Now, the last thing is challenge your first option. Now, this is also a really, really important lesson. What I mean by that is sometimes you choose an answer the first time you heard, and you say, no, that's the correct answer. And you don't even listen the second time to see whether your answer was right or wrong. So that's what I'm saying. Try to be open-minded. Always challenge it. Always ask yourself, why? Question 1, the answer is B. And then the second time when you're listening to the audio file, try to confirm that. Why? Because you must or you might fall into the trap. So be very, very careful. Don't stick to an answer if you're not 100% okay with it. Try to listen the second time to confirm. If the second time you got the same vibe or you got the same idea that that was the answer, stick to it, don't change it. But if the second time you listened and you saw that, oh, there was something really wrong with the answer I just put for number 1, so change it the second time. I'm not saying you should do it always. No, don't change your answer all the time. Most cases, your answer is correct the first time you answer. But be very open-minded that you might fall into the trap. So listen the second time, try to get all those traps out of your mind, try to find the answer, try to do all the steps that I'm telling you in each part of the course, and you will learn easily how to answer the questions. So in the next video, we're going to talk about part 1. You're going to learn everything about part 1. If you join this course, if you have this course right now, you can just go to the next video and start watching the part 1 and learn how to do part 1. If you haven't joined this course, there's a link down below here, which you can click on it and you can join the course right now. You can get instant access right now to the course, and you can start watching the other videos and doing the exercises and practices to improve your part, improve your listening section knowledge, and definitely you can pass this after finishing all the videos and doing all the practices. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video in the course.